Vallabha Girivaradari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradari Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Shri Radha Madhava ki jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai. The divine disappearance day of Ramananda Roy ki jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. This morning I was taking a japa walk in this beautiful path that is just here that Amara Prabhu showed me last week. You have such an opulence to take japa walks here, where there used to be a train path. Now it's a... And yeah, I remember that it was Ramananda Roy's disappearance day, and somehow I imagined this scenario in my mind, where I imagined that Ramananda, because Ramananda Roy is famous for his dialogue, his conversation he had with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, right? The famous conversation in Madhya Lila chapter 8 of Chaitanya Charitamrita. Ramananda Roy said, we'll read this dialogue, because we should. I mean, we'll read the Bhagavad Gita verse too, but on these days of appearances and disappearances of our great acharyas, if we meditate on them, we pray to them, our scriptures say we get extra mercy, and that's what we want. That's what we want. So this morning, as I was chanting my japa there, I imagined, Lord Chaitanya sitting across from Ramananda Roy and talking, and me kind of showing up there, and bowing to Lord Chaitanya, and I prayed and kind of like bowing to Lord Chaitanya, and having Ramananda Roy notice me. Like the reason why we stand behind the Garuda Stamba is we can, like if you stand behind the great devotee, or behind the shoulders of the great devotee, then you're kind of like getting the mercy via this recognized great devotee. And so there's this these subtleties in devotional service so I just imagined that I was coming to Lord Chaitanya, and I prayed to him. I said, my Lord, that famous verse from the fourth verse of the Shikshashtakam, Nadanam Najanam Nasundarim Kavitam. Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your causeless devotional service, birth after birth. And then I sat behind Ramananda. I imagine I just sat right behind him. So that was my meditation this morning. Do you think maybe the translation, we could do it a little bit further, do you think? Or are you okay here? Or because if you go maybe a little bit further, then maybe... Sorry, I don't speak German. So, Ramananda Roy, we'll read his dialogue with Lord Chaitanya. His super, super, super famous dialogue. And I think it's important we read it, so we refresh our consciousness with with this dialogue. But first, let's go over this verse 28 from chapter 10 of the Gita. It's interesting. There's just the four key words, right? Vajram, and then Denuka, and Kandarpa, and Vasuki, right? Those are the four words. Because here we're in the section in the Gita where Krishna says, of all mountains, I am the Himalayas. Of all this, I am this. Of all that. So whoever wrote the verse here took the key terms. So I guess I'll just read the Sanskrit, and then we'll read the translation together. And then there's a short, maybe 6-sentence purport by Prabhupada. Ayudhanam aham vajram denunam asmi kamaduk prajanas chasmi kandarpa sarpanam asmi vasuki. Excuse me. So the translation by Srila Prabhupada. Of weapons, I am... What's the first word there? Thank you, Prabhu. Vajra. What's Vajra? Thunderbolt. So of weapons, I am the thunderbolt. Among cows, I am Surabhi. She's a famous, all cows are wonderful, but the cows that we hear from in scripture who are actual wish-fulfilling cows, the cows of Goloka Vrindavan who can give unlimited amounts of milk and have all sorts of colors. And so of a cows, I am the Surabhi. Of causes for procreation, I am Kandarpa, the god of love. Because in order for procreation to take place, there has to be some mode of passion, some activation of the mode of passion. Kandarpa is a Sanskrit name for Cupid, Cupidon, right? And then finally, of serpents, I am Vasuki. Of weapons, I am the thunderbolt. Among cows, I am the Surabhi. Of causes for procreation, I am Kandarpa, the god of love. And of serpents, I am Vasuki. Purport by Prabhupada. The thunderbolt, indeed a mighty weapon, represents Krishna's power. In Krishna Loka, in the spiritual sky, there are cows which can be milked at any time. So you don't have to go exactly at 6:30, you can go any time. And they give as much milk as one likes. Of course, such cows do not exist in this material world, but there is mention of them in Krishna Loka. The Lord keeps many such cows, which are called Surabhi. It is stated that the Lord is engaged in herding the Surabhi cows. So therefore, another name for Krishna starts with G. No, God. No, I'm kidding. Govinda, yes. Govinda. Kandarpa is the sex desire for presenting good sons. Therefore, Kandarpa is the representative of Krishna. Sometimes, or many times, sex is engaged in only for sense gratification. Such sex does not represent Krishna. But sex for the generation of good children is called Kandarpa and represents Krishna. And so therefore there's this ceremony of Garbhadan Samskar in Vaishnava circles. And Prabhupada wanted this, where the husband and the wife chant 50 or 64 rounds, or 50 rounds before having, union. I'll tell you a funny story. There's a Prabhupada disciple, I won't mention his name because I don't want to embarrass him nor his son. But this is a Prabhupada disciple. He was, you know the story? You heard about it? He was in one of the communities of ISKCON in North America, and kind of like Simhachalam in the countryside. And I was staying at his house the next morning. So he had a son who was maybe a teenager, 17, 18, something like that. And the next morning on Sunday, Jai Nishingadev ki Jai, he got a phone call. So he picked up the phone. Yes? Oh, Sheriff? Yeah? Again? Ah, all right. Yeah, I know. Yeah, I'll be right there. I'm sorry. He hangs up. So I asked him, what's going on? He's like, my son, almost every weekend he goes out with his friends and gets drunk, and then he ends up in the sheriff place, and he spend the night in jail there, and I have to go and pick him up. So you could see he was really frustrated. So he was, I was walking next to him. He got into his car, and I always remember as he got into his car, as he was closing the, he looked at me. I was standing outside, and he said, I chanted 50 rounds for this kid. He pulled out and went to drive. Now the good part of the story is that this boy actually, had some delay in becoming a serious devotee, but he turned, he became a 16-rounder and 4 rags, and he took initiation, and he's a father now and steady in Alachua. But this thing, you had this notion, Prabhupada talks about this here, right? That, sex for the generation of good children is called Kandarpa and represents Krishna. As a matter of fact, I don't know the exact verse. Does anyone know the verse and chapter of the Gita where Krishna says that Kamosmi Bharatarshava? What is it? Kamosmi Bharatarshava. I am kama, or lust, which is according to religious principles. That act is Krishna himself. And Prabhupada says it right here, right? That sex not for procreation, in the ideal sense, does not represent Krishna. But sex for the generation of good children is called Kandarpa and represents Krishna. Now, sex within marriage, there's a big discussion. We're not going to spend too much time, but there seems differences of opinion in the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. But it's basically understood that, the ideal highest standard is sex just for procreation, and then but within marriage, it's not the highest standard, but it's your personal life. You try gradually to naturally diminish over time, and it's not sinful. It's within a sacred union. So sex outside of marriage is considered sinful, right? And so therefore, in civilized society, most men and women get married, right? So, that's that for this verse. I'll repeat it again, and then we'll go to Ramananda Roy and Lord Chaitanya's discussion, a conversation. Of weapons, I am the thunderbolt. Among cows, I am the surabhi. Of causes for procreation, I am Kandarpa, the god of love. And of serpents, I am Vasuki. Bhagavad Gita ki jai. Does anyone know what is the Swarup of Ramananda Roy? If I'm not mistaken, he's a few great personalities in one body, correct? He's Tulsi? Rati Manjari? He's Arjuna. I heard he's Lalita, or maybe. So think about it. In our theology, we believe, the Bhagavad Gita says, Dehinos minyata dehe. So one body, one jiva inside, right? But sometimes, such as in the case of Ramananda Roy, we see exceptions to this rule. Another exception on the flip side is Tulsi Devi. So Ramananda Roy, according to our Shastra, is a combination of several personalities in one body, which is rare. And then you have Tulsi, which is one goddess, one jiva, or one, personality. And how many bodies does she incarnate in the material world? Thousands, millions, right? So one soul in many bodies, and Ramananda Roy is, several souls in one body. So these are the few exceptions to the general rule of, one soul as the proprietor, so to speak, of each body. So I'll read, okay, this famous dialogue, and we can speak as we hear, and feel free to, interject and share your realizations. Lord Chaitanya already took sannyas, and he goes down to on the bank of the Godavari River, and he's heard from Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya that there's this great Vaishnava called Ramananda Roy, and that you should meet him. And so the Kaviraj Goswami describes that they meet on the bank of the Godavari, and they go crazy. They embrace each other, they go in ecstasy. And that's what should happen, at least when devotee friends meet, And you kind of see it to a certain degree, like at a festival, the two devotees haven't seen each other for a long time, they embrace or they dance in kirtan. And you multiply that to, a million, and you get the types of spiritual emotions of Lord Chaitanya and great souls like Ramananda Roy. So they embrace, they kind of go crazy in the transcendental sense, even so much that the brahmanas who are watching are like thinking, well, what is this? This sannyasi just embraced this. Because technically, Ramananda Roy, technically, externally, is what caste? Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, or Shudra? He's a Shudra, technically. Because he's getting paid every month a certain salary. So technically, he's a Shudra. So the Brahmins with their, lack of spiritual vision and just superficial vision saw, oh my God, how can this Brahmin sannyasi be touching, a rich, highly respected, but Shudra nonetheless, they, and you still see that in India today, like even up to today, with all due respect, but not too much, like we, all of us in this room, we cannot enter into the Jagannath Puri temple, right? We cannot enter into the Jagannath Puri temple. Why? Because we got white skin and we weren't born in India, right? So, Prabhupada would call this skin disease, right? Skin disease. But the spiritualists, vidya vinaya sampane brahmane gavihashtini suni chaiva swapake cha pandita sama darshina. Sama means equal and darshina means vision. So the pandita, the real pandit, the real person who has spiritual vision sees equally. That's why there's this really cool record label called Equal Vision Records. And they sees equally, right? So here we go, text 29. When Lord Chaitanya and Ramananda Roy regained their sanity, they both sat down, and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu smiled and began to speak as follows. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya spoke of your good qualities, and he made a great endeavor to convince me to meet you. Indeed, I have come here just to meet you. It is very good that even without making an effort, I have gotten your interview here. Ramananda Roy replied, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya thinks of me as his servant. Even in my absence, he is very careful to do me good. By his mercy, I have received your interview here. Consequently, I consider that today I have become a successful human being. Right? There's this statement, Sadhu Sangha, Sarva Shastri Koi, Lava Matra Sadhu Sangha Sarva Siddhi Hoy. You've heard of that statement from Chaitanya Charitamrita? You have, Prabhu. Lava Matra, it's a Vedic division of time. It's like, I think it's 1/11 of a second, if I'm not mistaken, like really short time. So Kaviraj Goswami says, Sadhu Sangha, Sarva Shastri Koi, all the Shastras, they declare that even if you get 1/11 of a second of association with the sadhu, sarva siddhi hoy. Siddhi means perfection, sarva means everything, so you get all perfection. All perfection is attained. So here you have God saying, I'm so lucky to have your association. How humble, right? Inconceivable. And then you have this great soul saying, no, actually, I'm lucky to have your association, my Lord. I can see that you have bestowed, Ramananda Roy continued, I can see that you have bestowed special mercy upon Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. Therefore you have touched me, although I am untouchable. This is due only to his love for you. You are the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Narayan himself, and I am only a government servant interested in materialistic activities. Indeed, I am the lowest among men of the fourth caste. You do not fear the Vedic injunction stating that you should not associate with a Shudra. You are not contemptuous. Contemptuous means, just in case we want to know exactly what that means, intolerant. Like, how dare you touch me, Like you see these sometimes described in our scriptures, Brahmins who get very upset, how dare you touch me, I have to go take a bath now, So Ramananda Roy is saying, You do not fear the Vedic injunctions stating that you should not associate with a Shudra. You are not contemptuous of my touch, although in the Vedas you are forbidden to associate with Shudras. So you see, Lord Chaitanya is showing from the very get-go that external designations mean nothing. It's about the person inside. It's about the spiritual qualifications of the person. It's about the purity of consciousness. It's about the purity of heart of the person. Right? And Prabhupada is the example par excellence of that. You know, coming all the way to the West, which, you know, the caste Brahmin society of India considers to be so untouchable that, you know, if you go beyond the Atlantic Ocean, you lose your caste, and, you know, people over there are, you know, the most fallen, blah, blah, blah. He didn't care. He just went and just, where is their bhakti? Where is their bhakti? Where is their bhakti? Where can I kindle bhakti? And then when there was a little kindling of bhakti, he just blew on that bhakti, and then even gave, you know, second initiation. And some contemporaries of Srila Prabhupada were, you know, how can you give this, you know, Brahmin thread to Westerners, you know? It's funny, I was taking a walk in Barcelona 10 days ago. I was taking a japa walk in the morning, beautiful japa walk with the sun rising. And so I had my t-shirt off, and I had this Brahmin thread around. And there was this family of Tamil, there was like 4 Tamil people, like real dark Indian, you could tell. They were from Tamil Nadu. And, 2 men and maybe 2 ladies. And so I was walking, just at that time I had to tie my shoelace. So as I was tying my shoelace, I could hear them talk. And then I heard them, Ishkon. So I know maybe they saw my Tulsi beads also. So I looked, I said, Hare Krishna. And they were like, Hare Krishna. And I think something, maybe they saw the Brahmin thread, or they say something. And I said, and then I quoted this verse. I said, it's nothing to do with birth, right? Chaturvanya maya shishtam guna karma vibhagasha, right? Krishna says the 4 varnas are distinct, are characterized by guna and karma, by what you do, by what your qualities, not by birth. And they were like, very good. That was cool. You are the Supreme Personality of Godhead Himself. Therefore, no one can understand your purpose. By your mercy, you are touching me, although this is not sanctioned by the Vedas. You have come here specifically to deliver me. You are so merciful that you alone can deliver all fallen souls. What's another name for Lord Chaitanya? Patita Pavana, which means, Patita means fallen, sinful, and Pavana means a savior. Patita Pavana. You are the savior of the fallen, he says. And therefore, you go to people's houses, although they have no personal business there. And so here in text 40, he quotes a verse from the Srimad Bhagavatam. So this is so cool. Like they're talking, imagine you're talking, and then in the middle of the conversation, you quote a verse from devotees do that too. But this is like, the most amazing way to quote verses. So he quotes, Ramananda Roy quotes a verse from the 10th canto, chapter 8, text 4. Mahat vichalanam nrinam grihinam dina chetasam nihishreya sa bhagavan nanyata kalpate kvachit. My dear Lord, I don't know who's speaking, but my dear Lord, sometimes great saintly persons go to the homes of householders, although these householders are generally low-minded. When a saintly person visits their homes, one can understand that it is for no other purpose than to benefit the householders. Because, Ramananda Roy was also a householder, so he took that humble position. Along with me, there are about 1,000 men, including the Brahmanas, and all of them appear to have had their hearts melted simply by seeing you. I hear everyone chanting the holy name of Krishna. Everyone's body is thrilled with ecstasy, and there are tears in everyone's eyes. My dear sir, according to your behavior and bodily features, you are the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It is impossible for ordinary living beings to possess such transcendental qualities. So then the Lord replies, and so he now glorifies his devotee. He says, Sir, You are the best of the topmost devotees. Therefore, simply the sight of you has melted everyone's heart. What's that devotee in Vrindavan, ISKCON Vrindavan, who spends many years there? He's from America. He takes devotees on parikrama like anything. He's dressed in white. He has a little... Dinabandhu Prabhu. He tells the story of how he witnessed how in the Los Angeles airport one time, Prabhupada was arriving, and there were many devotees doing kirtan, and then there was this African-American toilet cleaner, or bathroom cleaner, sweeper, janitor as they call him, maintenance man. And according to Dinabandhu Prabhu, when Prabhupada was walking by, this black man saw Prabhupada, and he started screaming, "Look at that man! He's shining! He's shining! Look at that man! Look at that man! He's shining! He's shining!" I remember the story because here Kaviraj Goswami talks about, right? Simply the sight of you has melted everyone's heart. So that verse applies to, to many times when, well, for example, Prabhupada, melted people's hearts just by seeing them. Indradumna Swami recalls that when he went also to an airport and saw Prabhupada, and he recalls, like, when I got up, I saw every single devotee, tears just going down their eyes. So, he says, although I am a Mayavadi sannyasi, this is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he took sannyas in what school? Into a Mayavadi school. Although I am a Mayavadi sannyasi, a non-devotee, I am also floating in the ocean of love of Krishna simply by touching you, and what to speak of others. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya knew this would happen, and thus to rectify my heart, which is very hard, he asked me to meet you. So that's the thing, when we associate with devotees, including Prabhupada by reading his books and hearing his lectures, and when we associate with Vaishnavas in the flesh, like we're doing now, their good qualities rub off on us. There's pure, Cheto Darpana Marjanam, we just get good qualities. We get purified. In this way, each of them praised the qualities of the other, and both of them were pleased to see each other. At this time, a Brahmana Vaishnava following the Vedic principles came and offered obeisances. He fell flat before Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and invited him for lunch. Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu accepted the invitation, knowing the Brahmana to be a devotee, and slightly smiling, he spoke as follows to Ramananda Roy. I wish to hear from you about Lord Krishna. Indeed, my mind is inclined to desire this. Therefore, I wish to see you again. See, this desire to hear about Krishna is something that we should really want to have. Right now, we don't really want to hear about Krishna. Like, not at all. I mean, speaking for myself, if you compare, wanting to hear or watch sense gratification and then hear about Krishna, so it's just like, I like to use the example of, you have default settings in your computer, like you turn on your computer and, whatever, WhatsApp automatic goes on and some other programs. So the default settings of us conditioned souls is, as soon as we're conscious, where is sense gratification? But the default setting of pure devotees is as soon as they're conscious, it's like, where is service to Krishna? And therefore Bhakti Tirtha Swami made that famous statement, turning the lust into love. The gopis in the 10th canto, they're described as, there's one Leela that one of the, maybe I don't know if it's in the 10th canto or if it was one of the Goswami stories, but the gopis at one point speak among each other and say, you know what, we're going to stop. Let's not talk about Krishna. He's a cheater, he's useless. Let's not talk about Krishna. Yes, okay, yeah, well. And so they go silent for a few seconds, and then there's some silence, and then one of them breaks the silence and says, oh, but when he plays his flute, it's so beautiful. Oh, yes, and when he's walking back from the forest, and again they come and glorify. So there it's like they can't, their default settings just forces them to glorify Krishna. So what do? Keep hearing and chanting. Keep hearing and chanting. And in the 7th chapter, verse 1, it's really 7th chapter, verse 1, Prabhupada gave so many lectures. If you look at all the lectures Prabhupada gave, 7.1, Maya sakta mana parta yogam yunjan madashrem asamsayam samagramnam yata gyasasita shrinu. So hear this, check this out, the translation. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, now hear, O son of, like Govinda Prabhu this morning was speaking about the importance of hearing. It's so essential. Krishna tells us, now hear, O son of Prita. How? By practicing yoga in full consciousness of me, with mind attached to me, you can know me in full, free from doubt. So you want to be more attached to Krishna? Keep hearing about him. Keep hearing Bhagavatam classes and Bhagavad Gita lectures and Prabhupada's books and your guru's lectures, and just keep hearing, keep hearing, keep hearing. And chanting, of course. And this, this process of hearing and chanting, Nitya Siddha Krishna Prema Sadhya Kabunoi Shravanadi Shuddha Chite Karayudoi. By this hearing and chanting, your original Krishna consciousness, which is there already, Kaviraj Goswami says it's not external, it's intrinsic, it's already there, it's just like really in comatose state, it will reawaken. Excuse me, it will reawaken. So just keep chanting and hearing and serving the Vaishnavas. And so the whole, the program that Prabhupada gave us. So, Ramananda Roy continues. Until what time is class? At what time do we stop? At 1:45, in 5 minutes, huh? Okay, so let me read one more verse, and then maybe if some devotees has some comments or questions, because we have until 7:45, right? Okay. Yeah, we could spend many days on this. Anyway, we took like a little piece of the Mahaprasad, right? Ramananda Roy said, "My Lord, although you have come to correct me, a fallen soul, my mind is not yet purified simply by seeing you. Please stay for 5 or 7 days and kindly cleanse my polluted mind. After that much time, my mind will certainly be pure." So he's like, please stay a little longer because I want to hear from you. Jai. So later on, I'll just summarize in 1 or 2 sentences. What's really famous about this dialogue is when Lord Chaitanya asked Ramananda Roy, okay, what's the essence? What's the gist, right, of Krishna consciousness? And then Ramananda Roy presents different things. Varnashram, offering the fruits, speculative knowledge. He offers and he gives quotes, even from Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam. And what does Lord Chaitanya say at every time? He says, no, this is external. Tell me more. No, this is external. Tell me more. No, this is external. Tell me more. Until finally he comes to pure devotional service. And that's when Lord Chaitanya says, right? If I'm not mistaken, does Ramananda Roy quote Anyabilashita Shunyam verse, or is anyone familiar with the actual verse that Ramananda Roy quotes? That's the first time Lord Chaitanya says, yes, but tell me more. But he starts accepting, like, yes, this is. So we should not forget, like we talk about, for example, we talk about Varnashram, and yes, okay, we talk about it, but we cannot forget that, Lord Chaitanya, God himself, that's, for example, about Varnashram it's external. Ultimately, the essence of Mahaprabhu is chanting and hearing about Krishna, Sankirtan, Chetodarpanamarjanam, Param Vijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtanam, with the faith that all purification ultimately is attained by this process of hearing and chanting of Shri Krishna Sankirtan. Right? Because we can get deviated by, sort of secondary, less. And that's fine, if there's a calling, Krishna is inspiring to do this or that, but everyone who has their particular mission in the greater Sankirtan movement should remember that ultimately we're all connected with this core activity of, of Sankirtan, right? Any corrections, comments, or questions in the 5 minutes we have left? Pure devotional service, bhakti, if I'm not mistaken, yeah. Yeah, that's a great question. see, Lord Chaitanya replies, this is certainly the limit of perfection. So Ramananda Roy starts talking about surrender. He quotes, as all surrender to me, I reward them accordingly. And then he quotes this famous verse from the 10th canto, when the gopis were overwhelmed with dissatisfaction due to Lord Krishna's absence from the Rasa Lila, you know, when they were dancing, at one point Krishna leaves and the gopis were left like, so when they were feeling overwhelmed, when Krishna left, Krishna returned to them and told them, my dear gopis, our meeting is certainly free from all material contamination. I must admit that in many lives it would be impossible for me to repay my debt to you, because you have cut off the bondage of family life just to search for me. Consequently, I am unable to repay you. Therefore, please be satisfied with your honest activities in this regard. This famous verse, right? I think Shivaram Swami wrote a book with that statement. Right. What is it? Na pare aham. I cannot repay you, Krishna says. So it's, very elevated discussions of the exchange of love between Radha and Krishna and the gopis. And anyone else? Prabhu.
Thank you, Prabhu, for the nice class.
Thank
I
you.
have a practical question. How we should right surrender to Krishna.
What's how to properly surrender to Krishna?
Yeah.
Well, Rupa Goswami, describes in the Nectar of Devotion these 5, taking shelter of the Vaishnavas. He also, recommends taking initiation from a spiritual master. I think sincerity is super important as well, Like Krishna's an we believe at least that he's an intelligent, super intelligent person, and he knows our heart. Bhava Grahi Janardana. Another name for Krishna is Bhava Grahi Janardan. He, Janardan, who takes the bhava, the mood. So I think, you should pray to Krishna to be sincere. Like really, I really want to surrender. I really want to serve. I really want to, live my life under your shelter, depending on you. Doing what you think is best for my service to you. And why would Krishna not fulfill that desire if that's really your sincere desire? And if on top of that you're getting advice from your Diksha Guru, from your Shiksha Guru or Gurus, whatever the case, there's no hard and fast rules, from the Vaishnavas with whom you're living around, from Prabhupada's books, from the chanting, the holy name, himself guides, you're getting that guidance from all these sources. So as long as, you're just wanting to, that's your goal, that's what you want, that's what you cherish. Krishna, Tesham Satata Yuktanam Bhajatam Pritipurvagam Dadami, to those who are constantly devoted and serving me with love, I give them by the understanding by which they can come to me. So just trust Krishna, and if you're, if you ask him, I want to be sincere, so please bless me so I can be sincere, so I can pray to you sincerely, and have faith that he'll fulfill that desire. Why wouldn't he? Right? Okay, well, thank you very much for the honor to share Ramananda Roy's teachings. Thank you for your attention and therefore mercy. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai, Sri Nishinga Dev Prahlad Maharaj ki jai, Srila Ramananda Roy ki jai, Gaura Pramanande Hari Hari.
Huge cake. This time.